let's take a look at the future of the NFL from two different perspectives because the NFL is trying to expand inventory for the regular season. That's no surprise. They want to have more games, more weekends of games, more windows in standalone spots where you can put a game and count on 20, 25, 30 million people tuning in. The NFL is the one property in all of media that can gather that size of an audience for a live event. People don't watch network TV the way that they did when I was growing up. I grew up in the days of 3 channels and PBS, and then that one weird channel that just had syndicated programming. You didn't have many options. The world revolved around primetime TV. Everybody knew what was on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every day. You knew what was on that night. Your plans to maybe do things were impacted by whether or not there was a show you wanted to watch. Because if you missed it, you missed it. Pre-VCR, you had no way of seeing it unless you just happened to be in the right place at the right time when the inevitable rerun aired months later. So the NFL now has power that some TV shows used to have. No TV show has that power now. The NFL wants to have more of these opportunities to gather 20, 25, 30 million people at once, because the more times you can do that, the more money you make from the networks. So here's what I see. And I thought of this in the context of the NFL's ongoing effort to slide the split between regular season and preseason one more spot over. It had been 14-6 prior to 1978. And you think about that. 6 preseason games. The full preseason slate was nearly half of the full regular season slate prior to 1978. In 78, they had 2 games. 14-6 becomes 16-4. It's still 20 games. And that continues for 30 plus years. And it was right around the run up to the 2011 CBA. The commissioner started trashing the preseason publicly. The quality of play is not up to the NFL's standard. The preseason isn't good enough. Now, that may have been a pretext for the real motivation, which was, let's take some of the preseason and make it regular season. And back in 2010, they wanted to go 18-2. And they put a device in the 2011 CBA that they thought would spark an expansion of the regular season without a new CBA. I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. There was a term that allowed the NFL to reduce or eliminate the preseason if it wanted to at any time without input of the union. The thinking as of 2011 was that when the NFL activated that prerogative, the players would say, whoa, 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 whoa. Well, we're going to lose money on this deal because we share the money now roughly 50-50. What can we do about this? And that's when the NFL says, oh, we have an idea. We can have more regular season games instead. So they never went there because I think they believed the players would have just called their bluff and said, fine, we'll take the loss and divide it by 2,000 players, and you take the loss and divide it by 32 owners and see who it hurts more. So that never happened. But come 2020, we moved it again, it went from 14-6, 16-4, 17-3, and they want to go to 18-2. And here's the thought I had. Once we get to 18-2, doesn't it just become a done deal? Doesn't it feel like let's just get rid of this preseason stuff altogether? 2 preseason games, let's just get rid of it and let's play. Let's play like college football. There's no preseason in college. They just play. And yes, the teams won't be at their best in the early weeks of the season, but you know what? They currently aren't at their best now because of the changes from 2011. No two-a-days, reduced intensity of practice, reduced off-season time. The teams take that first 4 weeks of the season as kind of like an extension to the preseason to get their team to where they're trying to make it ultimately go. And the only problem is the wins and losses count in September. And you may miss the playoffs because of a game that you lost in early September that you otherwise would have won if you'd played that game in mid-October. So we're already there. And I'm not advocating for it. I'm just trying to see where the puck is going. And we know it's going to 18-2. And I think once it goes to 18-2, we're all going to have a different feeling about the preseason. And there will be a point, I think, where most people will just throw their hands in the air and say, let's just get rid. We know we're going to get rid of it. Let's get rid of it. And I've argued in the past that the union, in lieu of bracing for whatever offer the NFL is going to make on 18-2, the union should just say, hey, we'll go to 20, but here's what we want. And have a long list. We'll do it now. Let's just go to 20. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Let's go to 20. We'll go to 20. It's going to happen one of these days. Now, look, is it good for the players? No. Are there devices that can be installed to protect the players? I still think to get to 18, they're going to have to agree to 17 players or 17 games, for all players except for quarterbacks, long snappers, kickers, punters, to get the players to agree to 18. But I just feel like once we get to 18, it's going to be inevitable at that point. It's not inevitable now because we're at 17, but once it's 18-2, we're going to get to the point where the snowball has rolled far enough down the hill that it's big enough to just wipe out the preseason altogether, because that's what the NFL would like to do. Replace preseason with regular season. Because when you do that, you replace preseason revenue with far more significant regular season revenue. So that's the length of season side of this. The size of the league side of this, and I've talked about this before, but now's the time to revisit it because of what the commissioner said. And he said, I have no doubt that teams, not one, and it'll never be just one. Remember when the LA market was empty and Al Michaels said, if the NFL ever goes back to LA, it'll go with 2 teams, not one. And he was right. If the NFL goes to London, it's going with 2 teams, not one. And if the NFL goes to Europe generally, I think it's going with 4 teams, not 2. And it's not complicated. 2 teams in London, and then a team in Germany and a team in some other European location. Maybe 2 teams in Germany, not in the same city, but maybe it's 2 in London and 2 in Germany, or 2 in London, 1 in Germany, 1 in Spain, 1 in France. It's not hard to figure out the potential destinations because we see the cities that have the stadiums that are capable of hosting NFL games. Those become the obvious locations for an NFL franchise. And Sims and I talked about this today, the factors that go into it. They'll find a solution. If they want to do it, they'll find a solution. And the players are going to be stuck with it. Are there going to be guys that don't want to go? Live in London, live in Germany, live in Japan if it goes that way. More on that in a second. There are going to be guys that don't want to do it. There'll be guys that don't sign with the team that drafts them if they have to go there. There will be things they have to do to make it work for international teams. And there are all sorts of other issues, travel. They're monitoring the development of supersonic flight, and it's not really development because I already had it with the Concorde. They're looking to bring it back. That would make things easier when it comes to getting a team from point A to point B quickly. Tax rates, exchange rates, political differences. What's the government of the place where you're going to be living? And even if you're okay with going there, the reality is you're not going to have the kind of short road trip that you now have. For a lot of teams, you tell your family goodbye Saturday afternoon and you're back Sunday night. They start putting teams in other countries. They'll do a 3-game road trip to the U.S. There will be a base of operations somewhere for multiple teams when they're playing games in the U.S., and then they'll go home. They'll be gone for 2 weeks at a time or longer. What do you do then? Do you bring your family with you? Do they stay there and hold down the fort? Do they really want to be alone in their home in some foreign land? So there's a lot that's going to need to be figured out. But the big mammoo drives everything. And the NFL knows that the future of the sport is in globalization. You take the inventory that you have and you take it from a domestic property to an international property, and $1 billion business becomes a $1 trillion business. That's what they want to have happen. They want the rest of the country to become, or the world, to become as smitten with pro football as we became with it during those decades where it felt like football would never catch baseball. I remember in the 70s, it was baseball, and then football was a distant second. And it just systematically become more and more popular. And into the 80s, it became kind of even. And by the time we got into the 90s, 2000s, like it's not even close now. Baseball is falling behind basketball and soccer, frankly, as it goes to popularity in the US. So they're committed to this. And I think the ultimate end result, and I've had some conversations about this over the years with people in a position of power and influence and who will continue to be in positions of power and influence. Right now, they like the configuration of 32 teams. It looks good. You know, for a long time, we had, and I remember, hell, most of the time that I followed the NFL in the 70s and the 80s, you'd have a 4-team division, you'd have a 5-team division. At one point, the AFC Central had 6 teams in it. They were different sizes in each of the 2 conferences. And by the time 26 went to 28, and then it went to 30, and then it was 31 for a couple of years before the Texans arrived to make it 32 in 2002, what they came up with was a perfect symmetrical grid with 8 divisions of 4 teams each. And the formula works well. In theory, if you hold season tickets, you'll see every other team once, at least every 8 years. Every team is guaranteed to play every other team once every 4 years. If they start adding teams 2 at a time, that's going to get cockeyed. What do? Do you go 32 to 34? 34 to 36? 36 to 38? 38 to 40? You know, I think it would start with 2 London teams. There would be one assigned probably to the AFC East and one assigned probably to the NFC East, just to make the trips the shortest, because every year the other teams in the AFC, Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Patriots, would have to fly to London to play a home game. So you could start that way, and then you could take it from there. You could add 2 other European teams. Maybe you put them in the North, AFC and NFC North. And then I think the end result, and it may take decades to get there, to me, the perfect end result would be a 4-team European division in one conference and a 4-team Pacific division in the other conference. And you may even want to reconfigure the conferences. And I think I tried this at one point. Hell, I can't remember. But I think I tried to figure out, with the Mississippi River as the rough dividing point, you'd want the other 16 teams in a given conference to be geographically close to the Pacific teams. And you'd want the other 16 teams in the conference with the European division to be geographically close there, because we got to take into account the playoffs. Playoffs. If you got a Pacific division team hosting a playoff game, you don't want to drag a team from New York all the way to Japan or wherever the Pacific teams would be. And you could probably throw a Mexico City team into that mix, but that would be the end result. And then I think once they get to 40, it's done. It's over. Because look, there's a real question as to whether or not they're going to have the talent to have 40 NFL rosters, starting with quarterback. It's already hard to fill out depth charts for 32 teams. But again, money drives this bus. And the determination to turn the NFL into a global powerhouse will push this thing forward. And they like to take baby steps. And it will be 18-2, maybe 19-1, and then eventually 20-0. And on the expansion side, it'll be 32, 34, 36. And maybe they'll just finally go from 36 to 40 and just be done with it. But These are all things that will unfold after I am gone. They haven't added a team since 2002. It's the longest stretch the NFL has ever gone without expanding. I feel like it's just a matter of time before it's on the table. And then once it's on the table, we know it's going to happen. And you could argue that the commissioner's comments, that he has no doubt that there will be teams in Europe, or at least in other countries, that puts expansion on the table without putting, what else could it mean? You're going to relocate teams? You're going to have fan bases nervous that they're the one that's going to get the tap and go to London? I think, and I'm glad I kind of talked this through, I think the big takeaway is expansion is now firmly on the table without anyone saying expansion's on the table. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.